Hello and welcome to the Smartest Moron, where... well, this is it guys, the final video on .hack.gu. Really thinking I should have at least finished reviewing the reboot, having all that stuff together, than doing this now. At the very least, it would be a hell of a lot less pressure on me.
The story starts off pretty slow actually, not even following up with the last meeting Haseo and Ovan had. I assume he had to suddenly get some coffee after making Haseo piss himself with that shock return. Aside from Ovan interacting with his sister before this entire mess got started, we do get some added dialogue with Haseo interacting with his guild through a quest, helping to establish how much he has changed. From back then of how he wanted nothing to do with these people, but now he wants to protect them and their fun. However, what's more surprising is the development his friends show, specifically Gaspard, who stands up for himself and is willing to fight anyone who would try and take him down and his shop. Although you're probably asking why this may be a problem since people aren't quite allowed to fight in the cities. I mean, if people could casually PK each other in towns, well, I doubt the game will be that much more fun. Probably end up like that South Park episode. The thing is, Yada has been fired by CC Corp for failing to do his job, and replaced by Sakaki as he claims he can control Ida to find a solution. Although anyone with half a brain can easily tell he's up to something. He's just abusing his own power to create his own rules, which even allow people to kill one another in towns, so people like Gaspard are very vulnerable. He also shows his immaturity a bit, by taking the avatar of Yada and beating the living crap out of him. I shouldn't be laughing, but I still find this scene hilarious for some bizarre reason.
Stupid! 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 Stupid little...
Sakaki, stop it! Stop! Stop! He's already dead!
Not helping things is that the gang cannot technically attack Sakaki, or CC Corp will just intervene. As you can tell, this is not a very good company.
Fucking Bethesda.
And considering CC Corp owns the characters our heroes are using, it's possible they could lock the team out of those characters or use some other method. Though, why are they doing this? Mainly to get results, and Yada wasn't getting those numbers high enough apparently. And I imagine if they solved the problem sooner, well, more money. The PKing in towns though does have a purpose. A chance to be in the Sage Palace tournament, although it's really just an excuse for Sakaki to torment Haseo, possibly to get him berserk. This is put to the test when Haseo meets the people who PK'd him long ago, and the chance to fight them starts making him revert back to his old violent personality, amplified thanks to his avatar. The funny thing is though, that I think in the anime, he already met them and he PK'd them. I don't know, maybe just killing the same people who screwed you over twice will give you some kind of rush. I actually understand that completely now. But that's not the only way Sakaki seeks to torment him. After a battle between Haseo and Antares, Sakaki then seeks to disgrace Haseo further by revealing him cheating in both tournaments using the avatar. Yet even after all that, Haseo also has to deal with Endrance and Saku seemingly betraying him for Taihaku too. Still, Haseo isn't without his own support. His guildmates, for example, try to cheer him up with a quest at one point, and Antares even understands why Haseo had to use the avatar to cheat, making Haseo remember he had a greater purpose than just winning, and not to doubt himself. And despite Haseo being the biggest bogus in this plotline, Pai is extremely important as a background character, since she is the only one left in the group who can fight Sakaki in the real world through CC Corp. While they don't show her often as a result of this, we do get at least one scene of the fatigue and stress getting to her. Then the updated emails show how focused she is on our goal of making sure she finds Yada. Yada, on the other hand, when it comes to character development, unfortunately I don't quite understand it. Maybe it's because of the previous history from the old .hack games that I can't really recall that much, but I'm afraid I just don't understand his complete thought process in GU. That's not to say there isn't development. He steps up his game to protect the world and reveals he too loves it a lot, especially with beings like Aura. But with certain scenes, it seemed he just wanted recognition and was even jealous of Ovan. Sorry to those that want a better analysis of the guy, but I can't really provide that right now. If I ever cover the old .hack games, we'll come back to this eventually. No promises though. Another character I don't quite understand are the twins Saku and Bo. I haven't really brought them up a ton due to how little they mattered in the plot, always feeling like extras. They aren't terrible and do present some good development with Haseo that I have gone over. The problem comes in their plot line, which made me tilt my head. See, they aren't actually twins playing one account. Rather, Bo seems to be suffering a split personality disorder, or something like that, which results in Saku, so she's technically not real. When she feels alone now that Entrance never pays attention to her and goes after Haseo instead, she feels the need to vanish since she doesn't feel she's needed for Bo anymore. Part of her story is trying to stick around rather than advance Bo's development to be independent. This has always bothered me the most when it comes to this game, since it's actively promoting the player into making sure that a kid remains unwell and listen to a voice in his head that tells him to blow people up. Okay, that's a tad exaggeration, but still not what I would call healthy. I mean, is she also part of the Gore avatar thing? I mean, it did kind of have a personality, and it's two people or something, but at the same time, as two people, so technically Bo's part of that, and oh god, my head is hurting. Ugh. What's even weirder is that you have to do this in order to unlock the gift cards that enable Haseo to marry a character or be best friends forever with them. And you can also marry Saku, which, well, at least she isn't dressed like Jack the Ripper from the Fate series. And no, I'm not showing her in that battle thong. Fuck you. If this was something like an identity crisis or discovering yourself, that would be kinda fine. Or something better than this, since this is clearly not my forte. Haseo's development comes to a close after the battle with Ovan, when his character PC is damaged and even his mind has suffered. The only way to fully recover and get stronger is by combining with Scathe, somewhat, who actually takes the form of Haseo's second job extension, only with white armor and black eyes.
Are you jealous now that I got this figure? Also, don't buy it for like $200 on eBay. Trust me on this. This was about 80 or 90. That's about as good as it gets.
Through the conversation, we basically get a summary of Haseo's development, how he changed and encountered the people who helped him. Despite all of Scathe's taunts, Haseo remains steadfast in accepting who he is now, but he won't let Scathe go since they both rely on each other. It's a nice sign of Haseo acknowledging who he was back then as well. Just because he is learning to be better doesn't mean that his past acts are just going to go away forever. He plans on taking the hard and meaningful way out. With the final battle against Kubiya, Haseo's development comes to a close, becoming the real hero the world needs right now. I'd explain some of the Kubiya stuff, but frankly, there's just so much to absorb that it just keeps raising questions more than actually giving out answers. For example, when Aura finally enters the picture, we never get a reason why she made her knights look like Frankenstein's monsters. That would be kinda important, I think. We don't even get an explanation from Yada as to who these three represented from the previous games. Also, why Orca instead of Black Rose? I mean, Orca was comatose until after the finale, and this lack of information also hurts characters like Yada for me. You'd think people like Yada or Entrance would point all this stuff out, that these characters have the same models as friends they once knew, and have some kind of dilemma with it or something. But no. As a fan of the old games, it throws me off and comes across as one of the most disappointing aspects of the series. You can at least give some fan service. They're beyond Pie's tits, I mean the internet has me covered for that. And yet despite my issues with following the plot and certain characters, I still love the story because of Haseo. It's his journey along with many of his friends that I want to keep following. Trust me, the plot ain't perfect due to some padding forcing the plot to stop a lot, interesting character interactions save for more emails or simply just do not happen, and some might find Haseo hard to accept as a character. But through his journey and the struggles he faces with his friends, I find a person who is capable of change that some heroes just aren't. It was a big risk by not just making him an asshole, but giving him 3 games to build off of, but it remains one of the best games for people to play if they want to get into .hack.
And honestly, it could only work as a video game, as the animation for the anime is just not all that great, and they did make a movie out of the 3 volumes into one package that was just crap.
There hasn't been a lot of Adelaide development in Volume 3, but the ending is at least an extremely important and good one for her. After Kubiya is defeated and Shino is brought back, the two meet up back at the church with Adelaide being invited there, only to run away when she is unsure of what to do. Really, Shino just invites Haseo there to help him realize his feelings and show Adelaide that she matters too, that Haseo won't just abandon her just because Shino is back. It's a very nice and touching scene to end on. Well, technically it's not the end. You see, there's the Forest of Pain dungeon, a place where you have to go through floors in order to fight a bunch of bosses and everything, and at the end you get to decide your own ending through the use of a promise card. Yes, you can get married to any of the girls, save for Natsume, who's a hidden character, and crazy, and even marry Entrance as well. For anyone else, you get endings that reflect the character, kinda like a best bud ending. My personal favorite best bud ending is with Matsu, as they kick the crap out of all the PKers. But as satisfying as this was, fans wanted more, specifically a way to somehow get Ovan back. and at this point you could label him as one of the characters that possibly died before the release of Volume 4. There was an OVA that did revive him, but that just wasn't enough. But now let's try and see what makes Ovan's redemption work while still being a villain. Throughout Volume 3, the scenes with Aina help us show what he was like before all of this started, and can help make it easier as to see why he desperately wants his sister back, especially as we learn more info about the two, or see him reminisce about her. It's not meant to absolve him of all his sins, mind you, just to give a reasonable motivation to all his plotting around that kinda does make sense. Given his sister was already sick and distant to the point where they could only play a game together, that alone could have upset Oban. Add to that, maybe he was the one to be care thanks to Ida. Yeah, it's only easier to see why he would be messed up. But he was able to retain some sanity to form the Twilight Brigade, who did have members who genuinely looked up to Oban until he vanished. It was revealed in the anime that the reason for this was him being imprisoned by Yada using another character model, but eventually broke out. And no, none of that stuff is ever mentioned within this game. The point I'm trying to make with that is that Oban was a relatively decent guy. At the very least, those that left the guild, he never tried to hunt them down and try to suck them back into the game at least. Not to mention, it's not as if he meticulously calculated each and every detail purely to torment Haseo. Although again, that's not to say there weren't plans to do so. You also have to consider what Ida is at this point. We have seen it screw around with people's heads to the point of making them insane. And if not that, then easily having those emotions heightened enough to make someone a threat. Oban is the one person in the series that might still be able to make conscious decisions while still having Ida, but it can still pose a problem. It's why some people think PKing Shino could have also been an accident, since he does seemingly try to hold himself back before Haseo finds out the truth, and has little choice but to reveal his trump card. It's not to say he is blameless of anything though, considering what he did to take advantage of what happened to Shino, to fuel Haseo and make him stronger, to try and rally the hatred more and more. There is just enough here that one could easily still be against Oban as well. After all, there were other characters he put in harm's way, or who ended up comatose as a result of his meddling, like Adley freaking out over Haseo using her, Arcade being PK'd by Bordeaux, or really anything related to Sakaki. And as a personal defense for the character, well, Ida itself wasn't going to back down unless Oban carried out his plan of making Haseo absorb all the phases. Had Oban kept trying to resist, chances are the body count would have been much worse. And if you don't like that example, then think of it this way. When it comes to villains turning good, I prefer that their intentions were noble beforehand, and we get some evidence as opposed to a bunch of paragraphs to make us feel bad for the character. It's another case of showing and not telling that games like Final Fantasy XIII or Persona 5 do not seem to understand when it comes to sympathetic villains. Another example of how this is used is basically the DLC and other scenes in Valkyria Chronicles with Salvaria, as they helped show she wasn't some uber-violent monster, and it made her death all the sadder. Though I do admit, more scenes of the Twilight Brigade would have helped made earning that sympathy significantly easier for those that don't want to devote their time to an anime. Volume 4 is able to accomplish making me like him a hell of a lot more, but first we gotta see what it's about. It takes place about a year and 3 months after the finale, with Haseo taking time off from the game to get a new job working alongside Pai, who helped him get it after he wouldn't stop bugging her. Do you see why I see these two as only siblings? There isn't too much development for Haseo, I mean, it's basically done, but he does keep other people out of the loop of what he was doing, which partly helps shows how obsessed he was in helping Ovan. But it's also kind of a backstep since he's just pushing them away again. I'm just assuming this was done for the sake of the player since it has been a very long time between the original release of the game and the HD remaster. Still, he's not the only one to show off his own development. Adley does so as well, quickly getting on Haseo's case in an aggressive manner that's honestly a bit refreshing. We also later get some extra confirmation about Zelkoba that I kinda already figured out. There was some kind of AI or something, so yeah, the kid is a genius there, that I can buy in that situation. The main goal this time is to save Ovan before the game shuts down because, surprise surprise, a game series that has people put into comas in 2 iterations is being shut down.
I'm only shocked that this idea wasn't done any sooner. Seriously, these people are being put into comas. I think that's a more serious issue than freaking loot boxes and microtransactions. Then again, this future is already idealistic anyway, so who knows, maybe those issues don't even exist there.
There is one thing that confuses me about Part 4. The girl that Haseo constantly meets is actually Ida, which, yeah, the games never really fully explain that aspect. Now, the OVA kind of did that, saying how Ida wasn't necessarily fully evil or something, but not the games, at least as far as I know. I know she's related to Zelkoba in a way, but honestly that just wasn't enough for me. And there are a few other things that bother me, like when you transfer data from Volume 3, the Azure Knights of Aura don't bother to help against this new threat, or even show up for that matter besides being in your party. Though I imagine this problem at least was because they couldn't get back all the voice actors, so there are some characters who don't have spoken dialogue with Haseo. Then again, trying to keep up with a plot this expansive is a bit difficult, but the stuff with Haseo and Ovan is really damn good. However, here's what helps me actually like the guy by the time we get to Volume 4. By the time Haseo finally finds Ovan and is able to free him from the icy prison, Ovan flat out admits he deserved to disappear. He knows what he did was wrong, and he thinks there's no way he can fix everything. His goal all this time was to save his sister. Helping Haseo take down Kubiya was a nice bonus to help make up for things, but it's clear with his admission of guilt, he thought vanishing was the right call to make given the horrible crimes he committed using Ida. And remember, his body in the real world wasn't going to last much longer unless Haseo restored his consciousness, so yeah, to make up for his sins, he decided on virtual suicide, in a sense. And his crimes aren't exactly small either. As I said before, there are hundreds, if not thousands of other people who were harmed by what he did. After watching this, I felt he was kind of similar to how Haseo was when the series first began, having to put aside all of his feelings and use people for his own benefit. Much like Haseo, they had noble goals of wanting to save someone close to them, but they were also both willing to stoop really low blows if it meant their goal was closer. The only difference is their position and how they changed. Granted, Ovan had a harder time of it with both an avatar and Ida to rein in. So with the characters easily being linked closer now through this talk, Haseo has the best response to all of this.
You freaking idiot! Are you ready to cut the crap now? You know that's not true! Maybe saving your sister this way made you happy. But do you really think anyone else is okay with this? You don't really want it all to end like this. I refuse to believe it!
And that's where the difference between these two finally comes in. To put it simply, when faced with failure, one can just give up and never change, possibly die, or live on as a person striving to improve themselves despite all the strife that's going to cause. That's basically the choice they both give each other during their scenes together. Haseo was the one who kept growing, from a newbie to a follower of Ovan, to being a damn good player, to eventually realizing his flaws in his personality, to become a much more likable person. He literally grew up during his time in the world as opposed to remaining the same kind of teenager he once was. The changes between when we first see and the last time we see these characters are very different. And the same kind of goes for Ovan as he fights along Haseo and comes back, as well as showing us a side of him we barely got a glimpse of in Volume 3. And it makes them uniting that much more important. Even their new forms are linked together, bounded by their avatars and Ida, becoming much more than just friends. It kinda feels like they're brothers now, or husband and wife depending on which kind of ending you got. Yes, this is real. There is one more quest after this story, but honestly I feel like you should play that for yourself. And yes, it is related to that picture I just showed. That's the .hack GU series in a nutshell. Well, from 3 character point of views anyway. There are legitimate problems when it comes to its storytelling, with some things relying heavily on past material, or simply not just explaining things well enough, like with Ida, which I had to look up on a wiki just to make some sense out of one scene I complained about. Not to mention that some quests felt worthless, while more questions can be raised thanks to the story. The combat isn't even that good despite the HD remaster fixing a few things. And yet, I still love this game series to death despite those flaws. While it doesn't do much with every character available, it does manage to craft an engaging story for Haseo that sees him grow into maturity, along with some good supporting characters like Adelie and many more. There were hints of another .hack game coming, but we never got the next game entry, Link. And honestly, I'm not too upset about that, but I imagine other people are. But for now, I am satisfied with how things ended for Haseo and the gang. I highly recommend you pick up the HD remaster. Just be sure to prepare yourself for some of the Avatar battles, which have sadly not aged well. Trust me, play Zone of the Enders and you'll know why I think this way. Then again, I'm also terrible at that series, so what the hell do I know?
I'm the smartest moron, logging out of the world for the final time.